I've been on this fire department for 22 years. I've seen a lot of terrible things, but this one was different. It felt different. It felt more personal. And in the end, 2 people lost their lives and 347 homes were lost. But as a department, it felt like we lost those homes. And we wish every time we lose a life or a house that we could have done something different to reduce that loss. And so going around trying to encourage the firefighters, telling them that they did a good job, none of them wanted to hear it. Just the look on their faces was pretty telling. One of the things that I wanted to make sure is that when the residents were allowed to go back in the mountain shadows, that we had as many firefighters in the area as possible to meet them as they went back in, not to talk to them about strategies and tactics or what we did to save your house and why we didn't save your house, but just to be there for them. And at the same time, not just being there for them, but for us also. Because again, this loss was very personal to us, and we wanted to be there to welcome them back into the neighborhood and let them know that your fire department is here. We'll do anything that we can to help you out. And it was just absolutely amazing how many people stood in front of burnt out homes and yet telling us thank you for what we did. As a firefighter, we don't want to be raised up and put on somebody's shoulder and ushered around and branded as a hero. I mean, most of the firefighters that I talked to after the fire was over and said thank you to them. They said, don't thank us, we were just doing our job. I remember seeing this couple with 3 or 4 kids. It just seemed like they were happy, they were upbeat, didn't seem like they were sad about the loss. Their house was completely gone. We got a chance to talk to them for a few minutes, and after a few minutes they got in their car and drove off. That's when it hit me that, you know, the most important things, with the exception of 2 people, were saved, and that's life. To see that family being able to get in their car with their kids and drive off was absolutely amazing, and it made everything all worth it, and gave me a different outlook on the results of Waldo.
Hello and welcome to City Talk. I'm Lisa Leiden, and I'm happy to guest host this special edition of a new regularly scheduled program that will keep you updated on what's going on in the city and Colorado Springs city government. Today we are looking back at the Waldo Canyon Fire 1 year later. We'll see some of the special events dedicated to remembering the fire. We just heard from Acting Fire Chief Tommy Smith. We'll also hear from Mayor Steve Bach, Chief of Staff Laura Newman, Fire Captain Steve Riker, and others who served during what was the city's most destructive fire ever. Who could possibly have imagined less than a year later our community would encounter an even more devastating fire that would destroy over 500 homes in the beautiful Black Forest. Here in the Pikes Peak region, we are strong, we are resilient, we stand together. For the first time, the Colorado Springs fire captain who commanded the Waldo Canyon Fire during the height of that firestorm sits down to talk one-on-one about the tragedy that to him seems like just yesterday. He led our men and women during the worst of times in unprecedented fire conditions, never before seen during his decades-long career.
My world absolutely changed.
And changed in a matter of minutes. Colorado Springs firefighter Captain Steve Riker served as incident commander for the Waldo Canyon Fire. He remembers all too well the very moment last summer when the uncontrolled wildfire took a terrible turn. It was late on Tuesday, June 26th. The plume of smoke many of us first spotted over the mountains on Saturday grew into a monster.
As I was standing near the Wilson water tank, one of the helicopters, and I can't tell you the exact type it was, he was doing drops right in our area, right where we assumed the fire was going to be coming. And about his 4th drop, he banked hard to the right, and he looked at us, and he's only 30 feet over our heads. And he looked right at us, and he gave us a signal. And Mike Myers looked at me and says, "Hey, Steve, I think he wants us to get out of here." And right then is when I noticed the wind started changing. We went from about a 10-mile-an-hour wind to about a 60-mile-an-hour wind. And that took about a minute.
And And in that moment, Mother Nature delivered another blow, a thunderstorm that helped transform the swirling, raging wall of fire into an inferno. It was like nothing this 30-year veteran had ever seen before.
I had a 100-foot wall of flame coming up that ridge line, and it was burning downhill at a very fast rate. Sometimes I'm not sure people understand what a 100-foot wall of flame looks like coming at you, and I guesstimated the trees 30 to 40 feet, and it's 2.5 times the size of the trees.
As it exploded right in front of him, Riker's immediate concern was for the safety of the men and women on the front lines. He grabbed his radio, ordering everyone to pull back.
We could feel the heat, and it was banking down on us, and we were losing visibility. And when I finally called for that first retreat, we probably had less than 10 foot of visibility. I had flying brands coming by my head that were the size of my fist, and I've never witnessed that before in 30 years.
Riker was the last one out of the area. He raced to the fallback location, Chipeta Park Elementary, to check on the status of his teams and wildland firefighters with Springs Utilities.
And my immediate concern was for the crews. And I immediately thought, these are the people I've worked with for 30 years, and I could lose someone up here. And I still get emotional about it, I apologize. So we just went downhill. When we got to Chipeta, I did a roll call. We call it a PAR, Personal Accountability Report. And what a feeling when I knew I had everybody with me.
But the relief was short-lived as the flames continued to push west. He pulled the command post back to Garden of the Gods in 30th Street. But as he parked, he saw another huge header rolling in behind the building with fire racing down the hill. At that same moment, a half-dozen hand crews with the National Forest Service pulled up asking if they could help.
I says, can you put that fire out? I pointed behind 2424 Garden of the Gods Road. He says, we sure can. And that group of guys took off on a dead run, which once again, put my heart right up to my throat, because I thought, man, what these people are willing to do here, to protect this city is just amazing to me.
As they defended that position, Riker continued to focus on homes in the Mountain Shadows area, specifically how and when he could order crews back into the inferno.
We set up staging at Fire Station 9, and and I'm sorry, I get emotional. I knew there was a time we had to send people back in. And the first person I talked to was Lieutenant Pellegrino on Engine 15. And I walked up to the side of his engine and I told him, Bill, I have no idea what you're going to see. I have no idea what you're going to encounter. But I need someone to go in there and give me eyes on. I need someone to go into that area. And his driver, Wojciech, was yelling at me from the other side, we'll go do it. So I sent him up there, and I told him, I said, Bill, at any time you evacuate, any time you leave, you tell me it's not doable, and that's all I need from you. That's, your word's 100% with me. And so Bill pushed up Wilson Road, and he said, okay, I've made the first intersection. Where do you want me to go? What do you see? And he gives me a description. Can you save it? No, there's nothing I can do. Okay, can you push further? Yeah, I can go further. So he kept going up, and as he was going up, I started backfilling. And I told him, as you keep going west, I'm going to start sending companies in behind you, and we're going to try to make a stand at some of these places. We're going to try to stop this fire. And you got to remember, we still had those 50 to 60 mile an hour winds going on at this time, and we still were just losing houses left and right. And Bill just kept pushing up, and I just kept filling in behind him.
Despite all the valiant efforts, the Waldo Canyon Fire was a monster. 347 homes were destroyed, dozens of others damaged, and a much-loved landmark, the Flying W Ranch, burned to the ground. But worse than all the property and possessions, 2 people lost their lives that night.
Horrible, horrible thing to lose 2 people, and I'll live with that the rest of my life. But and the homes, there's things you just can't replace. But what these individuals did, you just can't pay someone for what they did that night.
The Waldo Canyon Fire has left many scars, lives forever changed, beautiful forests and hillsides blackened. But through it all, it is overwhelmingly clear our community is strong. Many of the families who lost their homes are rebuilding, working to create new memories. Many of you have opened your homes to those who lost theirs. Others donated food and clothing, while others stepped up to give of their time and labor, helping plant new trees in the Mountain Shadows neighborhood. It is that giving spirit that's just one of the reasons why many of us choose to live here. Captain Riker says it influenced his decision 30 years ago to put down roots here. After all, 3 generations of his family have been Colorado Springs firefighters, and he is proud to pass that legacy on to his sons.
My dad, me, and I have 2 sons and a nephew right now, and I have 2 more sons that want to test.
But family ties aside, Riker's extended family, the men and women in uniform, will always have his heart and his gratitude.
But I'm going to tell you right now, in my 30-year career until the day I die, my proudest moment of this department is what we did that night. The Colorado Springs Police and the Colorado Springs Fire Department and Colorado Springs Utilities, I couldn't be prouder of any of those people, because what they did saved more houses than we lost that evening.